Hey everybody, Mike Donahue here, and you are surviving the podcast with Mike Donahue
And Steve
and
Hayes.
Steve-O. I call him Steve-O because it's easy for me. Although,
Yeah.
Steve, when I call you on my phone, I go, call Steve-O. And I have another friend of mine named Steve Copey, and it always calls him. And then I got to go, he's like, and I hang up, and he calls me back. And he's like, did you call me? I'm like, yeah, but I didn't mean to. And so then that's awkward, So,
Yeah.
couple
Yeah.
two old white guys don't know how to use their phones, but um,
Right. I like it when
so
I call somebody and like I got a friend, his name is Fedge. And if I say call Fedge, that's his nickname. It doesn't know. I have to spell it out. But what cracks me up is when, I've got another friend, Nina. I say, call Nina. And it'll say, calling Nina or something. The way the phone always cracks me up. Yeah.
yeah,
Old guys and technology. We're
and
pretty good though,
interpret.
technology wise, Mike. I mean, for old guys, we're doing all right.
I would say that I'm pretty good. My son one time said to me, he goes, "Dad, technology is wasted on you." But that was before like I got better at it. Like, this is what I've learned to do for you old guys. This is what you need to do. Don't panic. If you don't know something, figure it out. It's pretty intuitive. Most of these things are pretty intuitive. So they're gonna show you how to do it. It just doesn't come naturally to us. So you gotta learn it. But
Yeah.
then I'll think that I'm not doing very good. Then I'll talk to my mom and then I'm like, I'm good. Like, 'cause she's
I'm a
horrible. So
genius.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm MIT compared to her. So
I'd
we're
also
doing
say
all right.
this too, Mike, is that it's a great opportunity to connect with the younger generation. You don't have to know how to do it. Someone else already does, and they're younger than you, quite a bit younger than you. Ask them. And that we talked last time about having a platform to share who you are and so like that. That's a great way to build a platform by simply asking them, hey, could you have, but you got to kind of laugh at yourself because they're probably going to find a way to tease you or make fun of you that you don't know how to type in
Yeah,
numbers
you
on.
gotta let your ego go a little bit because they
Yeah.
do this all the time, right?
Yeah.
Just like me, like I do certain things all the time. I speak in schools publicly, and I do it all the time. I've done it like a lot. And so when somebody asks me a question about it, yeah, I have tempted to like go, duh, here it's like this. But if they've never done it before, it's not their
Right.
fault, right? So
Right.
yeah. All right. So hey, we're gonna get into this.
Let's do it.
Steve and I wanna we kind of struggle with like what do we want to talk about, right? So there's a lot of things. If you throw it into chat GTP, it gives you a lot of stuff. And so there's some questions I want to start out. We're gonna try to get through 6 questions today. And I'm gonna ask Steve 3. He's gonna ask me 3. I'm gonna kind of go back and forth. But so the first question, Steve-O, that I need to ask you is why dominance is not the same thing as leadership? Why I'll put it in my ask it in sort of the way I feel about it. Like why sometimes leaders come off like they have to dominate the world, they got to dominate everything, and they don't feel like leaders unless their idea is always taken and they're dominant and they're the ones that have the idea. They're the ones that are driving everything. And that why is dominance not leadership? What's
That's
real
a
leadership?
that's a great question, Mike. And we grew up in a generation where that's what leadership looked like. You ran over people. That's what you did. And to me, the simple answer for that really is one leads, one pushes. One's pushy. Dominance is pushy. Um, there's an ancient saying that's been around forever. It's called "Love is patient," and love really is patient. Leadership influences patience. Dominance is when I want to get an answer, I want it right now because I said so. That's why. Um, I heard this story once of this guy that was in England, and they were listening to this guy, and they were sitting on the side of this hill, and this guy was kind of doing this teaching on leadership or something like that, you know. And while the guy was talking about, or he was talking about shepherds and shepherding and the whole process there, and they're on the countryside, and they could see, a shepherd on a flock of sheep on the other side of the hill, and one the guy was talking about leading sheep and all that type of stuff, and how a shepherd cares for sheep. And the one guy started laughing, and he looked at the guy and says, "Why are you laughing?" He said, "Well, what's that over there?" And on the other hill over there, he could see that this man was chasing the sheep, and the sheep was running away. He said, "I thought you said that shepherds are always in front of the sheep; they're always leading the sheep." He said, "But look at that; the sheep is running away from him." And the guy turned around, looked, and then he started laughing. He said, "Oh, that's not the shepherd; that's the butcher." Right? And that's kind of the difference between influence and dominance. Dominance pushes from behind. Leadership, the whole point of leadership is to lead. When you're behind somebody, you're pushing somebody, they're in front of you at that point. They're the focal point. Trying to get in other words, the task is a focal point versus the person being the influence is about the person. It's about caring about the person. It's about I mean, I think we should focus a lot on that because sometimes I look at people's social media and I'm like, are you trying to influence someone to change? Because that's not going to influence them. That's dominance. That's pushing. That's because I said so. That's why. And that gets nowhere. It just creates the divide, that generational gap or that divide between us, no matter what the divide is. It just makes it bigger. So to me, the biggest thing is pushing versus leading, being in front of somebody and just letting them in love follow you. So one is patient, one is impatient, one is task oriented, the other one is person oriented. And you can lead and still be task oriented, but it's about the person, right? It's about caring for that person, in my opinion.
That's good. That's good. All right, fire away with
All
my
right, I got
question.
one for you. Okay. Emotional intelligence, or some people call it emotional literacy. How do you train this generation or people younger than us? How do we train people younger than us how to be emotionally intelligent without having to be feminine
Yeah,
or
because it
without
kind of
feminizing them?
yeah, kind of swung that way. Like if you, like be in touch with your feminine side is another way of saying be emotionally intelligent. Like I think so if anybody hears that and they go get in touch with your feminine side, they're like, no,
Yeah,
um, because it just sounds so weird, but being emotionally intelligent is not a feminine trait, right? I think being able to read the room, be able to read people's emotions. There's a lot of guys I know that are very masculine, but they know how to read the room. Like they understand. You're one of them actually.
thank you.
That you understand what's going on. You read people's body language, you read their mood, you read the way they say something, and so you can adjust maybe how you're going to approach something because of that, right? So, like, just the other day, I was at a school and there was an 8th grade girl, actually, her name was Bella, she was so cute. She walks up to me, she goes, "Can I talk to you?" And I go, "Yeah." She goes, "You're very emotionally intelligent." I
Wow.
go I go, "Thanks." I go, "What does that mean?" And she just said, she goes, you could tell you're like, you're a guy, but you understand people. You understand things." And I think that gives you an advantage. I mean, if you're looking at it like as a guy, you look at it from a point of view of, um, you know, how you interact with people and not I don't want to say what gives you the advantage because that sounds like you're in a contest, but
Right.
if you can put yourself like you definitely add an advantage in the relationship when you understand what people are going through. And so when you can even verbalize that, you're intelligent, emotionally intelligent enough to feel it and then verbalize it. Hey, this is the way you may be feeling. Um, that's not feminine, that's just smart, right?
Yeah.
So I think the question, how do you train people, is really just be sensitive to that, right? Like be sensitive to the fact that there are emotions involved and so a lot of times people don't communicate directly. It would be nice if people just said, "This is the way I'm feeling right now," blah blah blah, right? But they don't. They communicate with their mood, right? They communicate with um, their behavior. They may say a certain thing that they're angry, right? They say it in an angry way. Well, they're not really angry at maybe what they're saying right now. They're angry about something else, right? My daughter went through this thing where she was like 15 and she just started acting crazy. She started being really mean and really what it when it came down to, what took us a while to get to was she wasn't feeling good about herself. She had failed a test and she had felt kinda stupid, and so she couldn't just say, "I feel stupid," right?
Yeah.
So because that's weird. So she acted out, and then finally emotional intelligence inside of us took over and went, "Oh, wait, you're really trying to say this." So I think that's what emotional intelligence is reading the room.
And why is emotional intelligence so important, Mike?
Well,
Why
like
does
I
that
said,
matter?
I think it's because you miss a lot of things if you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
read it right, right?
Yeah.
If you just, take things at face value, sometimes people like I said, people don't communicate face value. If they did, that'd be great, but they
Yeah.
don't. So you gotta kinda read between the lines, right? And if you
Yeah.
don't, you'll end up missing some stuff. All right, Steve, here's a question for you.
All right.
Um, why does intimidation um is what like basically imitation in my opinion is insecurity in disguise. So why is when you try to intimidate somebody, why is that insecurity in disguise?
Yeah,
How can that be insecurity in disguise, I
and
guess?
it's funny too. I mean, I think it's good to point that out because we see intimidation as that person is very secure. We see the opposite. We see ego, confidence, or cockiness, right? Egotism, whatever you want to call it. We see that as, oh, wow, they're very confident. It's not true, man. The louder you shout, the more oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes the person that's shouting the loudest is the person that's most insecure. And why they do that, it's a front. It's hiding. It's a wall that's not letting people in really. If I'm pointing at you, Mike, that's the old thing we grew up with. If you're pointing at someone, you've got, you got three
3
fingers
fingers
pointing back
coming
at you.
back, Steve. Come
Yeah,
on, you got
exactly.
this. What?
Speaking of technology, boy, I'm trying to get it on the camera so you can see the three fingers on it.
I
But
got that.
we like to point at people because we don't sometimes we do that because we don't want people to see how insecure we feel. So if I want to change, and we can do it very well subliminally. It's very easy to not even realize we're doing it. But if I can point out you, then people aren't looking at me. It changes the topic. I don't want people to see my insecurity because again, it'd be great if we lived in a world where we could just say, I'm angry, I'm hurt today. You go into work and say, hey guys, I just want you to know I didn't sleep much. If I get grumpy, please let me know. I'm sorry, but I'm stressed right now, or I'm sad right now. My child is going through this. I'm having issues with my spouse, or whatever the case may be. But we don't do that. So oftentimes we don't want people to see inside of us. And for those that are watching this that are younger than Mike and I, which are probably a lot, because Mike and I are two old white men. But we grew up in an era where you didn't let your emotions show, especially if you were a man. You
Yeah,
kept that wall up, and um, so we live in a day and an age where I think that's one of the reasons why I just like how we today is a different day for a lot of people. I think we're more in tune. And so for people from a younger generation might go, what is your guys' problem? Well, we didn't grow up in the generation that it is today. Today, it's more cool to be we didn't even have that term emotional intelligence when we were growing up, right? That wasn't
right.
even a issue. So insecurity in disguise is often what intimidation is. It's and again, it's pushing. It's me trying to get a solution quick. It's me trying to hide how I really feel about myself. If I'm secure, I don't have to intimidate. I don't need to intimidate. I don't need to shout. And you look at the professional coaches out there, professional athletes, and those that shout, they get results, they get them quickly, but I don't see them sustaining as long because pretty soon shouting becomes the new normal. And if
Right.
intimidation becomes your new normal, then people get used to that and it doesn't work anymore. So being emotionally aware works. You go farther ahead when you have an emotional intelligence. Intimidation, on the other hand, it might get results quickly, but in the long run, it's going to come back and it's going to bite you. And if someone is being insecure or being intimidating or being egotistical, oftentimes it's because they're not feeling good about themselves that day. And if we can see that, I think it changes, for me anyway, it changes how I view them, how they're treating me right now. I'm like, oh, they're just not feeling good about themselves.
Yeah, I like what you said about the basically the dog that barks the loudest isn't always the one with the biggest bite. It's like
Yeah.
they're just fronting, you know?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
okay, you got a question for me?
I do. Um, Speaking of emotional intelligence, why is suppressing our emotions kind of the opposite of that? Why we grew up in an era where that was strength. If you didn't never let them see you sweat. That was a term that we used all the time. I heard all the time. Our parents said, never let them see you sweat. Wow, that's ridiculous. So why is letting them see you sweat not strength? Why is emotional suppression? Why is it that weakness instead of strength? Does that make sense what I'm saying there?
Yeah. Yeah, because emotion is never satisfied till it is expressed. It's going to get expressed. So that's a fallacy when people say it doesn't get expressed. I'm gonna sit there and, not gonna see me sweat. At some point, you're gonna sweat, whether that is, beating up your wife later. Maybe in the boardroom you were fine, but then you went home and took it out on your wife, right? Or or you took it out on your kids or whatever, because emotion is not satisfied till it gets expressed. It's gonna get expressed. That's why kids cut their skin, right? Because they suppress this, these emotions that are going on inside of them, and then they can't handle it anymore, and they finally take something sharp and cut their skin, which is so sad. And that's just one example with teenagers, but because that's my world. But basically, that happens when I was growing up. There was 3 bars down in Weymouth Landing where I grew up, and you could just set your watch to it around 9 o'clock at night. There were gonna be fights. Guys were working all day in the shipyard, they'd go drink,
Wow.
10, 11 o'clock at night, all of a sudden they're out in the streets beating the shit out of each other. And and it was because these emotions that they had about life, about disappointing themselves, those things never got expressed in the right way. And I'm not saying you gotta sit down with, Dr. Phil, but if you don't have, like, friends that you can talk over your feelings with, and, again, you're one of them for me, like, and I think I'm one of them for you, we can just
Yeah.
vent sometimes and talk.
Yeah.
That's so important, right? Because I'm actually, you know, being able to express those things so they're not bottling up, and then they don't blow up, over something stupid, because that's what happens, right? You suppress, 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 somebody looks at you the wrong way, and all of a sudden, you're off to the races in a big fight, right? And you're not fighting about the way the guy looked at you. You're fighting about all these things that you suppressed all day. And
Yeah.
so I grew up like that. I had a dad like that. I had grandparents like that. I had uncles like that that would just suppress the stuff. And then they looked like they had everything in control. But when we closed that door at night, it got really bad. And so nobody, everybody saw them not sweating out in the public,
Yeah.
but I saw them blowing their shit, so
Yeah.
that whole thing is ridiculous, right? You have
Yeah.
to teach people how to feel, how to express feelings, right? One of the
Yeah.
best pieces of advice I got when I went through a divorce in 2010, and it was bad, for me emotionally, and I felt a lot all the time. There was a lot of feelings coming. And one of my friends, who's actually a counselor, said, when you're in your car and you're driving down and no one's in the car with you, express those emotions, get mad, say what you wanna say when the person's not there, like, yell it out, and then he said, "When you're watching a movie by yourself at home and you wanna get sad," he said, "Get sad, cry,
Yeah.
like, just be emotional." And I'll tell you what, that was incredibly helpful to me because it got it out, and
Yeah.
and then nobody got hurt, right?
Yeah. Right.
My neighbors were probably thinking I was insane, but whatever, I don't care. But basically, I was able to get those things out, and then also talk to people too.
Right.
And again, I talked to you, and I talked to a few others that were helpful. So I would say that suppressing it is not a manly trait. It's
Yeah.
actually pretty weak,
Yeah.
right? Being able to express it and be real. I've said this on this podcast too, but I'll say it again. I have met 15-year-old men and I've met 40-year-old boys.
Yeah.
And the difference is not age. The difference is how do you handle those emotions?
Right.
If you
Right.
suppress them and then let them out some other way, you're immature. You're a boy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when you're old enough, you're mature enough to go, nope, this is what I'm feeling. I'm gonna express this. I'm gonna find ways to get this out in a healthy way. That's maturity.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up too, because I was gonna say that too. Like there's a lot of times I'll get in the car, drive down the highway, roll up the windows, and just sometimes I will just yell. I'll just shout, or I'll just bawl. And if you don't, suppression is it's like a beach ball. And you get a beach ball and you're out in the water. You don't want people to see that you have this issue. So you take the beach ball and you hold it under the water. Not a problem. You're a man. You're a dude. You can hold it. You got this, right? Well, something else happens and the beach ball stays underwater. Next thing you know, you've got a dozen beach balls that you're trying to be calm on the outside above the water level so people see that everything. But underneath, you are like struggling like crazy to try to keep all those beach balls down. And what happens when one beach ball comes up? They all come up,
They
right?
all come
And when
up.
they all come
Yeah.
up, now you're in the situation where the anxiety, the panic, the anger, the blowing up at people, and going back kind of to one of the things we just talked about earlier too. Sometimes when people get like that around us, it's because they've been suppressing. And
Right.
and if you don't take care of your luggage, we used to call it luggage or baggage, right? If you don't take care of that, it follows you around and then you end up dumping on other people. I really like what you said about about emotion is never satisfied until it's expressed. So express it in an area that you're in control of. You know, when you're by yourself or when you're with a friend that trusts you. Otherwise, when that beach ball comes up, they're all going to come out, and it's not going to be good for you. It's not going to look good on
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times I'll take it out on my wife, like, I'll just snap at her, and she's like, "What, are you mad at me?" I'm like, "Not really. It's something that it's something else. I'm really sorry." Like, I'm just like, "Oh, that came out the wrong way," you know? Alright, difference between I gotta ask you this question, Steve, what is the difference between force and influence? What's the difference between force and influence? How do you influence somebody without force, I guess, is what they're
This isn't talked about much, but I love watching westerns, right? And there was a way that the Indians would train
Native
or
Americans, bro.
Native Americans. Okay, right. Okay, gotcha. There is a way that Native Americans would train their horses. And I wouldn't even necessarily call it training because that horse became their friend. Okay, that horse, they were almost one. Love goes a lot farther than fear. You can get results with fear. Um, but they're quicker results, but they don't last as long. They're not going to go as far as love will go. Okay. That's influence. The Cowboys, on the other hand, would put the heavy saddles on. They would put spurs on their boots. They would jump on that horse, and that horse would try to buck them off, and they would break that horse's spirit. Is what they would do. Basically, get off that horse and say, "Now you know who's boss. You'll do what I tell you to do." Right? That's force right there. Okay. And the horse will do what they tell them to do, but it's not the same level of when the Indian who will take the Native American that will take the time and just patience and with a long rope and just run that horse around around the whatever it is. And finally, when the influence really takes hold, it's so strong. It's like they look that horse in the face and say, "We are one. I see you. You're my friend. You don't do it because I said so." They end up doing it because they want to do it. They would do anything. They would die for that person. So I think that's the difference between force and influence, right? And again, it's like being in front of somebody and people. Here's the deal: if I'm in front of somebody that people aren't following me, it's probably because they don't want to follow me. If I've got to be pushing them from behind, then I don't think I'm really leading. I think I'm forcing them. And they're doing something because I pay their paycheck, right? But if I didn't pay their paycheck, would they still do that for me? That's influence and that's power. And if we learn to influence each other or be influenced by each other, that's based on love. And love goes a lot farther than fear. Force is, in my opinion, and I love your input on this, but force to me is darkness. Influence is light. It's caring about the person, and all these questions you gave me today I seem to have that flow to them. Maybe you did that on purpose, but love versus fear, they're
Yeah.
two different things. And if we really want to get results, influence and emotional intelligence, caring about the person instead of the task or what that person can do for me, that's really the answer. And it changes our world in a great way, in a positive way. It changes it a lot.
That's good. I remember the teachers in my life that did not use force, they used influence. They were my friend, they saw me, and I learned more from them, I did more for them, I got more out of their class than any other teacher, and I had some bullies, I had some teachers that were tough, like, they tried to, use their force. Never worked. I didn't learn anything from them, and I didn't like them. It's the ones that and some of those teachers that I'm talking about that were influenced were the influential, they were still tough teachers. They weren't pushovers, but they just used influence to impact
Yeah.
me. So, all right, last question for me, Steve-O.
All right. And how many
Wrapping this
people
up.
are how many people are in the career that they're in right now because they were influenced by someone like that, right?
Yeah,
Or
sure.
I bet those were the classes you got the best grades in,
Yeah,
you know. And
100%.
the other way, I'm telling you, the other way, just in my opinion, it just doesn't work.
Right.
Which leads me into my last question for you, which is we've kind of answered this, but I'd like a more specific answer from you. I think you're going to be really good at this question. I like how you word stuff. I like how your brain thinks. So, what does healthy emotional intelligence, emotional literacy, what does healthy controlling of your emotions What's a healthy way? What does that look like when we do it right, when we do it healthy?
Like if I was teaching a boy, like a kid, I was 14, 15-year-old boy that I was mentoring how to handle his emotions, I would first of all say, acknowledge them. Acknowledge
That's
them.
good.
Like, first acknowledge them. It's okay to say I'm sad. It's okay to say I'm angry. When I have a 4th and 5th grade assembly that I do, and I have the boys stand up. I have the girls stand up too, but the first ones are the boys. I have the boys stand up and I go, "How did it feel when you were called a name?" Somebody was joking around or they was serious, but somebody used a word that hurt you. How did you feel on the inside when that happened? And it's amazing because it's like what's happening is there I'm giving this 5th grade boy, the 6th grade boy, 11, 12 permission to say it hurt. It's okay. You got to be able to admit it. You have to be able to say, yeah, this bothered me. It bothered me. Now, what you can do with that, I don't like to teach people how to be victims, right? I don't think it's good for them. And I don't think it's good, obviously, for society if we have a bunch of victims, right? I was victimized. I had a lot of bad things happen to me when I was a kid. I've talked about that. But I don't consider myself a victim in the sense that I'm using that as my identity, right? That hurt that happened to me is not my identity. So I would say that. I'd say
That's good.
acknowledge what happened to you, acknowledge how you felt about it, and then now you have to start doing some work towards healing, right? And so if that mean like for it's different for everybody, but if that means sitting with somebody like a counselor, I mean, I highly recommend that. I've done that a bunch of times in my life. When I wrote a book 3 years ago, 2 years ago now, called Groomed, and it was about my experience in Boston, my experience through churches that where I got hurt. So when I was doing that, I knew I was going to be feeling a bunch of stuff. So I set up an appointment with a counselor and said I need 12 sessions. And I paid for him ahead of time and sat with the guy. And towards the end, I didn't need him. I had paid for him, so I just went anyways. But but during that, while I was writing that book and all those feelings were coming back up, I didn't want to do it alone. I didn't want it to just fly around. So I wanted somebody with some
Like
skill in
that.
that area to help me navigate it. I
I
think
love
that's
it.
smart, right? But
Yeah.
again, 14-year-old boy, 15-year-old boy, I would say, first of all, feel it, then begin to talk about it, and how you felt. And then I would say that there's a lot of lies that get in your head when trauma has happened. Somebody called you a name, somebody, put you down, somebody minimized your existence, a stepdad, a mom. In my case, it was my mom. You those people are important. They're very powerful people. So in your life, and their words are powerful. So you have to compare their words with the truth. So I'll just be honest. My mom called me a loser a lot. And it got it that word, she called me a bunch of stuff. But for some reason, that word got in my head. Like that really bothered me. And until I started realizing that that was just her reaction to pain. Like she wasn't really mad at me. She was mad at life. She was mad at my dad. She was mad at her dad. She was mad
Oh,
at the way her life turned out. And
so good.
that was not my fault. And as soon as I started telling myself the truth on that kind of stuff, because truth does win in the end. Truth has to be more important than feelings. And I would
Yeah.
say that. I would say
Yeah.
when you're talking to people to try to help them, what does it look like? What does a healthy emotional state look like? It's really telling yourself the truth. It's telling
Yeah.
yourself the truth about you, and truth has to matter more than feelings. There's times when I really feel like what she said, like I was a loser, right? But then I stop and I go, I'm not though. Like I'm not. I'm really not. I'm really a good guy
Right.
processing life, I make mistakes, yes, but I'm not what she said I was.
Yeah.
And again, going back to the truth, telling yourself the truth. There's a thing we teach with Value Up, my school program. It's it's catch it, check it, and change it. So it's catch it. First of all, catch the thought, catch the words that you're telling yourself. I'm a piece of shit. I'm a loser. I'm nothing. Catch that. Right? A lot of times we don't catch it. They just come
Right.
the
Right.
psychologists say we talk to ourselves at 1,300 words a minute. So, those are a lot of words that can get thrown in your head, and then all of a you're not filtering, you're not catching it, right? So
Yeah.
catch them, and then check it. Check it with what? The truth, right? You check it with the truth. You go, what am I what am I really what's the truth about this? You know, and
Yeah.
begin to examine it and then change it. Begin to change those thought patterns. No, I'm not a loser. I'm actually a very capable person that can do a lot of things, and I'm going to walk in that. I'm going to walk in this identity that I have that's not what
Yeah.
she called me. So we do a
Yeah.
lot of training on that in schools, helping kids, again, catch it, check it, change it.
I
So
love that. I mean, to me, acknowledge it. Like what I heard you say is acknowledge it, and then talk about it, and then compare it. Compare
yeah,
it to the truth. I think that's so good, and I think one reason why, we don't acknowledge it, I feel sad, I feel like a loser, I feel like crap. It's because what you said next was so powerful when you said, "That is not who you are, that is not who we are." But if I say I'm sad, that means I'm sad. I'm a sad piece of whatever for a human being. If I feel like I'm a loser, that does not make me a loser, and to compare that to the truth, and for me, you're one of the people that I do that with. For me, I have to find when sometimes those emotions can get so overwhelming that when you feel like you're a failure, it is so hard for you to combat against yourself. And sometimes we can't handle that on ourselves. So I call you, there's a couple of the friends that I call when I'm feeling that way, and I compare the truth. I let you tell me what the truth is. Mike, this is how I'm feeling. What do you think? Where's the truth in that? And where's the lie in that? Help me figure this out. And when
yeah,
I hear it come out of your mouth, it has a little more pop to it than it was just coming out of my brain. I like
yeah,
that, Mike. Acknowledge it, talk about it, and then compare it.
yep, yep.
So good.
I did a school a couple years ago, and there was a D1 recruit sitting in my room. So, I'm speaking to high school kids. You don't know who's sitting there. You don't know who's in the room.
Right.
So there's a D1 recruit sitting there. She's going to play volleyball for a really top 10. If I name the college, you'd know it, right? So basically, bottom line is she's sitting there. I didn't know that. I didn't know her. I just saw this girl up on my left side, and she's crying and then laughing at my jokes, but like almost like too much laughter. Like she's like the jokes weren't that funny, right? So I mean they were funny, but not that funny. So I was watching her because she was kind of worrying me, right? Her emotional pendulum just swung like woo woo. So I went over to that side of the room at the end, and she walked down, and she just whispered in my ear. She goes, "I don't want to live." And we got her into the AD's office. We called her parents. We did everything we are supposed to do, and we got her help. Well, what it came down to, Steve, was one lie that was in her head. It wasn't like this big, she wasn't being beat at home. She wasn't being, minimalized constantly. It was one lie that got in her head that she
Wow.
didn't check, right? She didn't catch it. It was just kept coming, coming, coming. And then she didn't catch it, or change. She didn't check it. She didn't go, okay, compare this to the truth. She just let it fly, and then it just overwhelmed her. And as soon as we were able to help her with that lie, her parents, me and the counselor, boom, it almost like it shrunk. Like this lie
Yeah.
just became nothing. And I think that's emotional intelligence. I think it's like I said, going back and checking those thoughts with
Yeah.
truth. So
Because our brains are built in such a way that they will find confirming evidence. So if I've
exactly right.
got that thought in my head that I'm a loser, then I will see things all around me that will prove that I'm a loser.
Right.
If I can somehow tell myself I am not a loser, and I don't know why we struggle with that, like we feel like we're being egotistical or whatever, but if I can call myself a loser, then I can say I'm a winner too. It's really if you consider that, right? Well, if I
Right.
call myself a winner, even if I don't feel like it, if I hear myself say that, my body chemistry, everything it begins to change. But I will find my brain says, "Hey, we're a winner here. Look, there's proof. There's proof." So whatever thing we're telling ourselves, or whatever lie we're listening to, or whatever or truth we're listening to, our brain is built to confirm that in us, and they'll say, "Look, see, I told you you're a loser." If I
Right.
think I'm a loser, I'll find stuff all day long that I'm a loser. But the opposite of that is true as well.
Spatial disorientation with a pilot is when they get up in the sky and they can't see the ground, and their inner
Mm,
ear gets messed up, and they feel like they're like this, right? And their instruments are saying, "No, you're straight, you're good, but you feel this way." And so what do when you're a young pilot? You start to adjust your feelings instead of your
Yeah.
instruments. And I think that's really what emotional intelligence is trusting your instruments, trusting the truth about you, which is you're fine. And if you're a person of faith, then obviously that plays into it too, because you're like, okay, I'm loved no matter what. I'm valuable no matter what. If you're somebody who thinks the universe gave you existence, well, that's your right as well, that you have a right to be here. You are valuable. And so whatever your basis is, whatever your instrument is, mine personally, and I think Steve could speak to this too. We're both men of faith. We both, believe in God. So mine is, okay, God loves me. I know that. So I'm going to stay on that, right? But people tend to, especially teenagers, but people in general tend to believe their feelings and then let those feelings overwhelm
Yeah.
them, and you can't do that. Steve, this
Yeah,
has
to
been
me, that's
great. This has been
yeah,
great, great, great. I'm glad we got to talk about this stuff. Close us
me
up.
too. Me too. Um, for all of you who watch and listen, like, and we're getting more views every episode, boy, we sure appreciate that. We sure appreciate you guys. And that to me, emotional intelligence is knowing what your panels, your what you call them, what your gauges are saying. Have good gauges, good people in your life that can help you, right? Whether you believe in faith or you believe in the universe or whatever it is, follow those. Having a good emotional intelligence is not just following your feelings, but mixing fact in with those feelings. You have a heart and a head. Your heart feels, your head thinks, right?
Yep.
Your head processes while your heart just feels. There has to be a connect between these two. That's what keeps you alive. Your heart feeds your brain tells your heart what to do. So putting those two together makes life a lot better, makes life a lot happier. Mike, thanks for letting me come on here and do this thing with
Yeah.
another old white man. And you guys have an incredible week.
Have a good week, everybody. See you next week. Steve's gonna keep coming back because I'm gonna make him.
Wow. 5 in a row. That could be a new record.
Woo!
Never been this far before.
See you later, guys.